This is the April 9th, 2014 hearing on the Assembly Committee on Appropriations. We have a relatively light schedule for appropriations. We have 116 bills up today. Madam Secretary, please establish quorum. I'm here.
Bigelow. Present. Allen. Bocanegra. Here. Bradford. Here. Calderon. Campos. Donnelly. Eggman. Gomez. Holden. Linder. Here. Pan. Here. Quirk.
Here.
Ridley Thomas. Here. Wagner. Here. Weber.
Here.
Quorum.
Okay, a quorum is present. Next you have Assembly Bill 1964, which has a due pass recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a bill that would close a loophole in the state's unsafe handgun law. This loophole threatens to seriously undermine existing state handgun safety laws and requirements. Existing law provides that no unsafe handgun may be manufactured or sold in California by a licensed dealer and requires that the Department of Justice prepare and maintain a roster of handguns which are determined to be safe. One of the exceptions to this statute has been the opportunity to sell what are called single-shot handguns, whether or not they meet the otherwise applicable safety requirements. What has developed over time is that guns that would not otherwise meet the requirements are modified to meet the single-shot exception, sold, and then remodified back to their otherwise unlawful status. This used to be something that was a rather minor, an occasional occurrence, but it's grown to be over 18,000 instances in the last year. It's something that the Department of Justice has noted is growing at a rapid rate, deserves to be curtailed because it is not consistent with making sure that those handguns that are sold in California meet our safe handgun requirements. And I would respectfully request an aye vote since the bill has only minor costs.
Terrific. Do you have witnesses in support?
Rebecca Gonzalez. I'm here today as a volunteer with the Brady campaign to prevent gun violence in all our chapters in California, and we strongly support this bill which closes this loophole.
Next witness.
Sylvia Solis Shaw on behalf of the Office of Los Angeles City Attorney Mike Feuer in support.
Is there a public comment in support? Do we have witnesses in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, members, good morning. Sean Doherty from Wild Horse Consulting on behalf of our client, the California Association of Federal Firearms Licensees. We were in opposition to this bill when it came before public safety, and we continue to be in opposition for this bill. First thing, we do continue to have an issue with the way the bill is drafted when it calls for banning guns that have been permanently altered to be single shot. The sole purpose of creating a single shot exemption is that it would fit the definition of the not unsafe handgun roster. If this firearm, in this case semi-automatic, has been permanently altered to be a single shot, then where is the harm? Secondarily, we don't see the need for the bill because while the member notes that there are 18,000 of these cases that have happened in the last year, there's no evidentiary background to support that claim, number one. Number two, there are no crimes that have been committed from these firearms. The roster itself is under judicial review in a case that is being brought, Pena v. Lindley, and this would simply add to the opposition, the plaintiff in that case. It would add to their case and bring the roster under even further jeopardy. We don't feel that the bill is necessary. We don't feel that there's a harm that's actually taking place, nor that this bill will actually solve for that harm. And for those reasons, we don't think any costs are justified and ask for your no vote.
Is there any more speakers? Department of Finance.
No file.
Yes, sir. Were you coming to the mic late?
Yes, sir, in opposition.
Give us your name. And
my name is David Powell, and while we understand the concerns about the bill, the Assemblyman last month failed to notify the public that not all of these guns that are not on this roster, this California roster, I might add, are unsafe. They're not unsafe. They've all passed in 49 other states. They're common use guns, and there's no reason for this bill. And that's why I urge a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else?
Sam Peretta is representing gun owners of California in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Coming to the table.
Mr. Vice Chair, the gentlemen joining us are from the Department of Justice. They're just here as technical witnesses if the committee is interested in what the characteristics and incidents of the use of this loophole.
So they're here for questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the question, as you stated it.
So do you want to describe for the members how this loophole is being now exploited?
My name is Steve Lindley. I'm currently the chief of the California Department of Justice Bureau of Firearms. I'm the Lindley in the Pena versus Lindley lawsuit. I'll actually turn it over for some more technical advice from my partner here, Special Agent Supervisor Blake Graham, who can describe exactly what's going on, and we would kind of debunk the fact that these guns are not being used in crimes and there's not an issue.
Good morning. So I'm actually one of the people that involves in assisting weapons to get on or off the roster if there's a problem or if they are successful in their attempts by manufacturers to put a gun on the roster. I actually take the guns apart and make sure that they're in compliance or not in compliance. The numbers this year are trending towards about 19,900. Last year there were 18,000 of these that were put in people's names as single shots when in fact they were temporarily single shots. The way this is occurring is there's some overall length and barrel length minimums that are being temporarily placed on these weapons. So there's basically a longer barrel that is temporarily welded onto a dummy barrel that's inserted in the weapon. And then after the 10-day waiting period is over with, the weapon is then walked out of the store sort of as part of a charade to get around this law, the existing roster law, and then the person will walk back in and ask the store to gunsmith their weapon back into semi-automatic status. There's sort of a recipe, if you will, on the internet encouraging people to do this on various websites. So that's just one of the practices. It takes about 2 minutes to convert a gun from single shot mode back into normal semi-automatic mode. As far as weapons being involved in crimes, there are weapons that have been seized as single-shot pistols that are, for example, Glock pistols that are not on the roster, Generation 4s, and there are weapons that are crime guns and evidence status on those, just to name one specific type that I've seen as of this morning. I looked at the numbers, and there are single-shot pistols, but they're not single shots. They're semi-automatic handguns that are made to be that way.
Overall, this is just a loophole that's in the current law that allows people to bring in guns that aren't on the current list. They gunsmith them, and then once the purchase has gone through, they gunsmith them back to the original configuration. These are semi-automatic pistols that are being changed to single shot in order to get around the law.
Move the bill.
Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and second. Is there any other witnesses? Seeing none, would you like to close, Mr. Dickinson?
I would only add that the purpose of the safe handgun roster is not just to prevent the use of such guns in criminal activity, but also to prevent those who might otherwise be injured by accidental incidents because the guns don't meet safe handgun standards as well. And with that, I would request respectfully an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. This bill doesn't quite have enough votes today. How do you want? We're going to be big roll call for us, and we'll put it on call for you.
Okay. Thank you.
How's that?
Thanks.
Oh my.
Thank you. That's good.
So, what's your next one? Mr. Alejo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm here to present AB 1609, which is a common sense bill that will keep firearms off the streets by making it a state law violation for a resident of California to go out of state, purchase a firearm, and then bring that firearm into the state without going through a licensed dealer. This is already required by federal law. However, it is unclear if this also violates state law. AB 1609 simply clarifies that it does. By purchasing a gun out of state, the purchaser of the weapon evades many of the in-state purchasing procedures, such as background checks, the waiting period, and firearm registration. To make things worse, many of these guns are being purchased in Nevada and Arizona, trafficked into California, and then sold to criminals. This bill will simply give state law enforcement the ability to prosecute criminal behavior. And finally, I want to make it clear this bill does not affect those who abide by the law, only those who break it. This bill has only minor fiscal impacts. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Move the bill.
Second.
Thank you. And here to speak on behalf of this bill is Blake Graham of the California Attorney General's Office.
Let's go to witnesses in support.
Good morning. We're here for technical advice if there's any questions about the bill of how it might interact with current law enforcement practices and whatnot.
Wonderful. Any other people who wish to speak?
Yes, Erwin Nowick in a unique capacity, I guess. Last year there was some conversations about certain issues and there was some harsh things said, but in retrospect the chair made the right decision on that issue. We're here back for the 15%. We think this is focused on the problem that was identified, and it is important to certain members of my employing House, the Senate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nowick. Any other witnesses in support? Public comment in support? Senate staff in support? Are there witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. No, there's one. All right.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman, members. Sean Doherty, Wild Horse Consulting, again on behalf of my client, California Association of Federal Firearms Licensees. We oppose this bill in Policy Committee, and we continue to stand in opposition to the bill for a couple of big reasons. One is this bill is actually inconsistent with, as it's written, with federal law. There are a number of exemptions that the ATF and the federal government in their wisdom recognized needed to be put in place before these prohibitions were put in place. For example, if someone wants to loan a firearm for the purposes of a target shoot, the ATF regulations, U.S. Code 922, allows for that firearm to be loaned across state lines. This bill, as it is currently drafted, does not allow for that exemption. Furthermore, this doesn't allow for the exemption within the television and film industry. I myself have family that happens to be in that industry and know that quite often there are firearms that aren't currently in this state that are needed to be brought from other states and loaned for film production. This bill, as it's currently drafted, doesn't allow for those exemptions. But more importantly, Mr. Chairman and members, we really don't see a need for this bill. Current California law gives the Department of Justice police powers. It gives them the ability to enforce California law by arresting folks. Further, California law makes it illegal if any member of this committee wanted to go to Nevada and buy a firearm and bring it into California. They must go through, they must have the firearm transferred, shipped to a California dealer with a California FFL. It must then go through the DRO system, the fees being paid, 10-day waiting period, et cetera, et cetera. Assemblyman Aleo, in his statement, rightfully noticed that the Department of Justice was given last year $3.5 million to conduct stings and enforce gun trafficking. First question we have to ask is, how's that going? $3.5 million is a lot of money. They have the powers to enforce gun trafficking. They have the funds to enforce gun trafficking. Why are we needing this bill? It seems completely redundant, and we must stand back and ask ourselves, considering federal law doesn't allow this, and current state law doesn't allow this, and they were given extra funds to enforce it, what is the motivation behind this bill? Until the exemptions are cleared up and that becomes clearer, we stand in opposition and strongly urge your no vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in opposition? Public comment in opposition? Seeing none. Department of Finance.
We have no file on this bill.
Let's go to questions or comments from the panel. Mr. Donnelly.
Mr. Alejo, so let me get this straight. This bill would say that if you go to another state and legally purchase a firearm and then bring it back to California, then you would be in violation of this law on a state level. Is that correct?
Under state, you would be in violation of federal law, but it's conforming federal law to state law. So under this bill, it would be a violation of state law as well.
Does it also include if you go to other countries and import weapons
Any
Would it
gun
apply to
purchased any gun purchased out of state, Mr. Only.
Okay, so the whole purpose is out of state.
Correct.
Would it have any effect on, like the Olympic team that travels in to the state of California to compete from other states, which seems to be something that might have been referenced by
The answer is no.
the witness? No, not at all?
No.
Is there an exemption written into it?
There's numerous exemptions, and the exemptions that exist in federal law, some technical amendments could be done to fix that, and I'm open to doing that as the bill proceeds, and I'm hoping that the opponents will support it after we make those small technical amendments.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about putting state law in conflict with federal law. We have enough laws already, and I'm in agreement with the witness saying that we should enforce the ones we have.
Well, I know you have a challenge following our existing state gun laws, Mr. Donnelly, but this is simply trying to conform what's already existing in federal law.
Excuse me. I don't think we're going to go there when one of the members of your house is actually facing something that would be affected by your own law.
All right, we're going to keep the personal attacks to a minimum, please, and proceed with the discussion on this bill. I think we've had a fairly good discussion. We have another question, I believe, from Mr. Quirk.
Yes. Perhaps someone could address the objections of the witness that somehow, so the point of the bill is to conform state law with federal law. The witness said that the state law already is conforming. Could we have some testimony on that?
Yeah. So my name is Blake Graham. I'm a Special Agent Supervisor with the California Department of Justice, Bureau of Firearms. This bill would basically allow state and local officers to arrest someone that would already be breaking federal law in the sense that they had gone out of state, illegally acquired a firearm, let's say Nevada or Arizona, for example. Then they come back across and they get caught in the act of importing that weapon back. It would also potentially allow for an arrest or investigation of people that ship guns here just to circumvent normal background checks and whatnot. We get calls from different shipping companies, FedEx and so forth. Hey, we just had some guns fall out of a box on our conveyor belt, and we're uncomfortable with this. Can you come take a look? And situations like that, where there's out-of-state gun shows or other trafficking involved. Redundancy in the sense of state and federal law is good, and it's in a sense it's commonplace. We have machine gun laws here in California that mirror the federal law. We have laws about felons can't have a gun in California under California law, and as also federal law as well. So there's a lot of duplication in a sense where both the federal and the state government think it's an important issue.
But the point here is that the witness is saying you already have the authority. Do you feel you not have the authority now? And if so, why?
Sure. So in the sense that we can investigate people for various firearms and types of violations, there are several laws, as the members know, dealing with firearms in California. This specific section here will target a small niche of basically just traffickers that are already breaking a federal law that is not clearly defined under California law. If a transfer is done in the state of California right now and there's not a gun store involved, generally that breaks the law. But if that same thing happens in the parking lot in one of the casinos in Reno over there, and let's say there's a California resident on one half of that transaction, and he brings the gun back here, there's no corresponding state crime that I know of, nor do anyone in my bureau know of, that we can charge that person with on the state level. This bill would create a chargeable offense.
Thank you. I'm quite satisfied with your answer.
We have a request from another witness to be heard, and go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. If I may provide some clarification. California Penal Code Section 830 and the ensuing sections underneath that give broad police powers to a wide range of law enforcement agencies within the state of California, Department of Justice being one. So California Code Section 830 already gives them arrest powers. Penal Code Section 27545 specifically says that if you were to buy a firearm out of state and transfer it by FedEx into California, you are committing a crime. And it outlines what that crime may be. Misdemeanor for rifle, up to 1 year in jail, possibly felony if it's a handgun. So if I may provide that clarification, their Penal Code Section 27545 provides that this is already illegal by state law. In essence, what Mr. Alejo's bill does is just create an extra wobbler. So again, we're back to the question of, since we do have state law, and I've given you the code sections, and in order to violate this law, you'd have to first violate the federal law. Why do we need this bill? Particularly in addition to the fact that there are these exceptions that are not listed. And Mr. Donnelly's absolutely right. This would prohibit the Olympic team from coming into the state of California. Those have to be taken care of. But we still stand with, why do we need the bill?
All right, if it pleases our author, I'm going to allow one more witness to give a rebuttal.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. There is an open, first of all, this bill applies only to ownership. So if somebody, when it only applies to California residents who go out of state and buy guns or take title to guns and bring them back in. So non-residents, the Olympic team, all that stuff doesn't apply. That's the first point. Second point on 27545, which was created many years ago when my former boss, Steve Peace, was a member of the Senate. He carried the bill to clarify that both A and B created the crime. There is a very complicated jurisdictional issue of whether or not going 5 inches outside the state and bringing the stuff back in is a state crime or not. That's the whole issue. The whole thing here is it's not clear it's a state prosecutable crime. This bill, and it's a work in process, as Mr. Alejo pointed out, will make clear it's a state crime. That's what this is all about.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the panel? Mr. Bigelow.
Thank you. Maybe you can help address Mr. Alejo or maybe some of your witnesses. Under the current federal law, 18 U.S.C. 922A prohibits an individual with some clearly stated exemptions from transferring firearms between states without using federal licensed dealers. AB 1609 would create a new state law that fails to provide for the longstanding exemptions in the federal law. And you can find that under Section 18 U.S.C. 922A3 and also 922B3. And I'll give you an example. The temporary loan of a firearm for lawful sporting purposes is exempt currently under federal law. Your law would take that away. So if a father was going to loan a rifle to a son to go hunting, that could not occur. That son would, or potentially, be arrested and convicted not only of a misdemeanor, but potentially a felony. How can you remedy that lack of clarity that exists with the conflict in the creation of your bill?
Thank you, Senator Bigelow. As I stated earlier, there were some exemptions that were omitted, but as the bill proceeds, before it goes for a vote on the floor, it would, all those exemptions will all parallel exactly federal law. So that issue you just raised will not be an issue when we take a vote on the floor.
Well, there are a number of conformities that need to be, and right. There's a fairly long list of those conformities, and I would encourage you to take a look at all of those actions. It doesn't just limit it to that example that I gave, and it goes to a broader
We will make sure that all the exemptions parallel existing federal law.
And I gave you the direct sections, and I don't want to misguide anyone. I want to make sure that we're also looking at our own local state penal code, 27545 as well, that is in conflict. So thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Allen.
Thanks so much. There's a lot of talk about conformities with your bill, Mr. Alejo. Federal law does not allow anyone to purchase or acquire any legal firearm in any state outside of the person's residence, with the provision that the person or dealer selling the firearm must comply with all the laws of the purchaser's state. The only way to comply with that is for the seller to send the firearm to a legal dealer in California. This means the seller must become registered with the California Firearms License Check System, obtain a transfer authorization from the California Department of Justice Firearms Bureau, and then and only then can they ship the firearm to an approved legal dealer in California. At the point, the purchaser must comply with all the transfer laws, including background check and a 10-day waiting period. Violation of this procedure would already be a felony under federal law and multiple misdemeanors and possible felonies under state laws. Therefore, it appears to be completely unnecessary and completely redundant. Furthermore, question to hopefully the DOJ members that we have here. California Penal Code Section 830 gives the Department of Justice the authority to arrest people for violating California gun laws. Penal Section 27858 requires that if I buy a gun out of state, or anyone buys a gun out of state, they must have it delivered to a California dealer with an FFL. If the person does not, there's a host of penalties ranging from misdemeanors with jail time up to 1 year all the way to a felony. That's existing current law. You as a DOJ have the authority already to stop gun trafficking. AB 1609 relies on current law in order to exist. So the question is, why are we spending the time and money with this bill, which, by the way, doesn't even mention the DOJ, to give them authority that they already have?
Thank you for your prepared statement, Mr. Allen. See if our DOJ witnesses want to answer that question further.
Sir, the existing sections that are there, over the years we've had intercepted subjects going out of state, acquiring firearms, let's say in Reno, coming back across. We've given the fact pattern to the different DA's offices where the traffic stops occurred, and in some instances they didn't feel there was any violation. So some of those instances are what has formed, I guess, our thought process behind some of this here. So does that answer your question, sir?
So essentially you're saying the feds aren't doing their job?
No, I'm not saying that. Sometimes federal law, they will take a case if it maybe beats a federal, maybe a minimum threshold, that type of thing. Local DA's offices have also, huge workloads and whatnot. They may not take a case if it's not clean in the penal code for them. So I'm not casting aspersions on any entity at all. I'm just saying this bill, in a sense, would clarify that this type of activity, trafficking a gun that you illegally acquire out of state and come into the state with it, and you're caught in the act, it would be a violation of the sections mentioned in this bill.
Correct, and it is already a violation of the sections that we mentioned, both state and federal. So the question is other than adding a misdemeanor wobbler, which is all it appears to actually do, how would this stop additional gun trafficking in California?
I'll answer that. My name is Steve Lindley. I'm currently the Bureau Chief for the California Department of Justice Bureau of Firearms. You had a couple questions dealing with if it's a federal crime. Yes, it is. Unfortunately, they have thresholds, just like every DA's office has, about what they're going to prosecute and what they're not going to prosecute. So sometimes they do not prosecute these cases for us. That leaves us kind of in a hole. And what do we do with these individuals that are committing a crime but we can't get prosecuted? When we look at some of the current California code sections that we send to the DA's offices, it is unclear to them if this is actually a violation or not. This bill will give some more clarity towards that. So when we have these individuals, and this isn't your common citizen that's doing this. These are a lot of gang members, felons, criminals that are going across the border and bringing guns back. It gives us the ability to target them and prosecute them successfully, either on the state level, but on the federal level. If they can't handle that on the federal level, we can do it on the state level and give the DA's offices very clear charging criteria.
You had mentioned that this is not our ordinary citizens. There's a recent news story. Would this have stopped any of the activity of one of our senators that's been indicted on gun?
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. You don't need to answer that. We're going to just go under the assumption that this bill has been moved by Campos, seconded by Quirk, and that it is time for the call of the question. Listen, would you like to close, Mr. Alejo?
If people who are following our gun laws will not be impacted by this bill at all, it's just conforming federal to state law. It's very simple. We've done that plenty of times in other aspects of our penal code. Ask for an aye vote on this bill today.
Thank you, everybody, for the very robust and at times interesting debate. This bill is out on a B roll call. Thank you very much. All right, a very patient Mr. Frazier. killing me over there. God. What's that? Yeah, I know. Okay, Mr. Frazier, are you waiving on your suspense candidates, or are there any that you wish to?
Yes, I am, Mr. Gatto.
Okay, so then we have Assembly Bill 2105, which enjoys a due pass recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. AB 2105 would increase the non-resident tag fee from $500 to $1,500 for the Nelson Bighorn Ram Hunters.
Second.
The bill would also allow the Department of Fish and Wildlife to authorize a nonprofit organization that auctions big game hunting tags on behalf of the department to retain 5% of the amount of the sales price of the tag plus any applicable credit card fees as a reasonable vendor fee. The price of a non-resident sheep tag is currently set in statute at $500 and has not been changed since 1986. Thus, the price of the non-resident tag has not increased with inflation or in line with other state prices. The bill is also intended to ensure the NGOs do not lose money in the process of selling Nelson Bighorn Ram tags and maintain an incentive to sell the tags at their fundraising events. I would like to reiterate that the department does not have the forum, networking, or marketing capability that NGOs have, and therefore are not able to raise as much income as the NGOs. NGOs have the unique capability to reach out to a target community that has an interest in this particular tag. Last year's sale in California's Bighorn sheep tag sold for $170,000 in Rancho Cordova. Nearly all the funding raised by the NGO at their events goes directly back to the Department of Fish and Wildlife from the NGO for use on their projects and other expenditures for wildlife conservation that benefits wild sheep and other big game species. Allowing the NGOs to retain the 5% plus the reasonable vendor fee would cover the NGO's administrative costs and maintains their incentive to participate in the sale of these tags. AB 2105 will promote and enhance the important conservation partnership between the Department of Fish and Wildlife and nonprofit organizations and ensure maximum annual revenues to the state for wildlife conservation. With me is Kyle Mainster, founder of the Wild Sheep Foundation California chapter.
Okay, we're going to go to witnesses. Just keep in mind the bill has been moved and seconded. It can only get worse from here. The floor is yours.
Thank you for inviting me. This is Kyle Meinzer. I'm the founder of the California chapter of the Wild Sheep Foundation. I'm also on the board of directors of the National Wild Sheep Foundation organization. A couple comments on the staff analysis. I believe it's flawed on a couple of issues. First, it assumes that credit card fees would be applied to all purchases. In my experience, which is considerable, they are rarely used at all. Most people write a check. So that would overstate the financial cost of the credit card part by roughly 50%. And as Assemblyman Frazier said, the NGOs have the ability to provide the proper venue, the marketing expertise, the systems, and particularly the network of buyers. There's not a lot of people out there that are willing to bid on these tags, particularly on the sheep tags. The department does not have those, and they've recognized that. A vendor fee of 5% is about half of what the other states that allow these tags to be sold for offer. Elk Foundation and the Mule Deer Foundation, which have been selling these tags, have both told us recently that they're going to stop selling them because they're losing money doing it. The Sheep Foundation and the California chapter have raised over $2.7 million for the department in selling fundraising tags. In addition, over $600,000 in grant and aid has gone to the department from these fundraising tags.
Thank you very much. And just to note on what you said about the staff analysis, I think you're referring to the policy committee staff analysis. Our staff has put a due pass recommendation on this bill, which is rapidly changing. But let's go to your next witness. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Kathy Lynch representing Safari Club International, Outdoor Sportsmen's Coalition, California Sportsmen's Lobby, and I will heed the chair's wise counsel and just ask for support. Safari Club does sell these tags and concurs with the author's statement.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this bill? Seeing none, Department of Finance.
No file.
Are there questions or comments from the panel? Would you like to close?
I apologize for the lengthy presentation, Mr.
That's
Chair, and I respectfully ask for the committee's aye vote.
Thank you very much. That bill is out on an A roll call with Mr. Donnelly not voting. Thank you very much.